Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our budget hearing of the Sioux Falls City Council on Tuesday, August 18th, 2026. I'll notice that we've got a quorum of members present. We've got 4 different presentations this afternoon. Council, we will kind of run it the same way we've run the last couple of weeks. And then what we'll do is at the end of the 4 presentations, a quick note. Would like each counselor to, at the end of the 4 presentations, kind of recap if you've got any outstanding questions on the budget from a different department or something overall. I'd like you to bring forth that question to determine if we need to have another hearing next Tuesday. So next Tuesday, we've got our 4th informational at 4 o'clock. And we've kept that schedule open specifically if we need to carry something forward. And so at the end of this meeting, we'll determine if we need to schedule that meeting or not. So at the end, I'll just ask, are there any outstanding budget questions that you'd like further discussion on? And then we will invite the administration back next Tuesday at 4 o'clock if we need to have further presentations. So we'll have that at the end of today's informational session. We'll go ahead and get started today. We're going to get started with the department that contains my favorite division, the Fleet Division in the city of Sioux Falls. And we're going to get started with Public Works. So we'll welcome forward Director Cotter.
Well, I know Morgan Jackson appreciates the early shout out on Fleet, so we're going to finish today with Fleet. So thank you for the opportunity for us to present our 2027 budget. Similar to the rest of other city departments, we've kept our operational costs flat to 2026 with the exception of wages, internal funds, and certain chemicals and materials that we're aware that will see an increase. Public Works Department is made up of several funds, the General Fund divisions, which is highways and streets, an appropriated fund, storm drainage, enterprise funds of power and distribution, landfill, water rec, along with 1 internal service fund and the council chair's favorite, fleet. The proposed budget in Public Works for 2027 is $318.2 million. Our overall budget is down about $18.7 million due to timeliness of some key capital projects. Public Works is made up of 10 divisions, 342 employees. We have asked for 2 additional employees with this year's budget. We're organized into 4 key focus areas of transportation, business operations, environmental, and utilities. And in addition to our full-time team, we hire on average about 100 part-time employees each year to assist us with our operations. You've heard us say before, we define quality of life as having safe drinking water, toilets that flush, lights that turn on, smooth commutes, a functioning drainage system that protects private and public property, and the responsible disposal of solid waste and recycling. I'm Mark Cotter. I'm the Director of Public Works, and I'm fortunate to have our leadership team here today along with our key partners in finance, communication, city attorney's office, and IT. When we look at our overall budget breakdown of this $318.2 million, 35% of that is in highways and streets, and 65% of that is in the enterprise funds and fleet. All right, we're going to kick off today with Highways and Streets 2027 budget. This budget is $112.3 million. The Highways and Streets Division brings together the collaboration across engineering, traffic, and our street operations. Our key focus areas are year-round, safe, drivable, efficient traffic flow. When it comes to our pavement index, we're shooting for a very good street condition, keeping up with growth, and strategic and coordinated planning with all of our partners. Highways and Streets program is responsible for the long-range planning, design, construction, and the maintenance of our roads to assure efficient, reliable, safe transportation network. There are 6 key programs within the Highways and Streets 2027 budget, requests totaling just over $112 million. When we break that down between operating and capital, the operating is just over $38 million and the capital is nearly $74 million. The Highways and Streets Division is currently at 123 employees, and we're requesting one additional employee. That additional employee would be a signal technician. The purpose of this position is to support the expanding citywide camera network and related infrastructure. The funding would come from general fund with resources from traffic, public safety, and IT. Current workload, we have 5 technicians that currently manage 300 signalized intersections, along with 337 traffic cameras and 166 security observation cameras. This equates to approximately a workload of 60 intersections per technician. Federal Highway would recommend that we be in that 30 to 40 per technician. With your support of adding one additional signal technician, that would go from a workload of 60 intersections down to 50 intersections. The camera network supports traffic flow, public safety, police department needs, and city operations. Cameras require life cycle replacement about every 5 to 7 years, and 70 cameras were replaced in 2025 due to age and condition. As I mentioned at the start, our Highways and Streets Division brings together the collaboration across engineering, traffic, and street operations. Together, these teams manage an extensive network of just over 3,500 lane miles, nearly 24,000 streetlights, and 800 signalized intersections, traffic detection cameras, and security observation cameras across the city. This revenue slide that you're familiar with from other departments, you'll see this throughout our presentation today, those major drivers. The key is you'll see some inflationary increases in the street frontage taxes and the government shared revenues. You'll see a reduction in charges specifically related to our sidewalk repair program. You've seen that we've done extensive amount of work through and across the city. We've worked through a significant backlog. And because we've worked through that backlog, going forward, we'll be going down from 3 contracts a year to 2, which in turn will mean less invoices and in turn mean less revenue. So we've made that correction here due to working through that backlog. This chart shows the general fund operating major drivers of the Highways and Streets Division. 73% of our budget is made up of wages, benefits, equipment, and fuel. These are the people and the equipment that are necessary to make our streets safe and drivable 12 months out of the year. If we were to include capital in this chart, which you'll see in most of the other operating budget drivers throughout the presentation, the 66% of this chart would be devoted to capital. Further breakdown of the budget and those major drivers. Our people are the driver of this budget. Wages and benefits are increasing for cost of living adjustments along with the additional FTE requests. And offset from the fleet equipment and fuel and the equipment rentals line items, which is nearly mirror each other, is due to acquiring the 34 motor graders from the RFP process that you supported in 2025. This was also discussed at the budget kickoff meetings by the Finance Director Pritchett. The additional increases is in preparation for the additional 10 motor graders that will come off lease in 2028, and we want to be in a position to follow the same process, issue an RFP, and make the best financial decision whether we continue to lease or purchase at that time. Stated earlier, the decrease in the sidewalk repair program follows the revenue discussion. The reduction of $500,000 here in the program is due to the team addressing the backlog, and we'll be going from 3 contracts down to 2. All right. This next slide really highlights the 2027 Highways and Streets Capital Plan, which is $74 million. Just organizing the slide with the pie chart. Below the pie chart shows the major programs that our Highways and Streets runs our capital program through. Just below that shows some of the key projects that are continued and that are underway right now and will continue into 2027 with the Marion Road overpass of the Burlington Northern and the 85th Street and I-29 DDI interchange that's under construction. We have a list of the 2027 major projects that will take you through some of the graphics of those so you can visualize those a bit more. And then in the lower right, the 2027 key design is MC 130, which is what we call Minnehaha County 130. There's 6 partners involved with the Minnehaha County 130 project: the state of South Dakota, Minnehaha County, the city of Crooks, the HOA that's at the interchange with that light industrial at the intersection, at the interchange, the Sioux Falls Development Foundation, and the city of Sioux Falls. Working in partnership is not new for the city of Sioux Falls. We brought together the 5 entities that worked for nearly a decade to make 85th Street and I-29 a reality that's under construction today. And it would go without saying, Councilor Sigley has been a strong advocate of North Marion Road, and so I want to make sure that she's aware that Marion Road from Maple Street to 60th Street North will be built in 2 separate phases in this 5-year capital plan. We have it programmed the North Mile in 2030 and between Benson Road and Maple Street in 2031. All right, this 5-year bar chart shows the overall picture of the Highways and Streets capital plan over the 5-year. You'll see that there's a modest increase from 2027 to 2031 and the respective programs that are listed below. All right, now for a few graphics of those key projects that were listed on the cover page. South Veterans Parkway, this is truly a result of 30 years of working together with partners to plan and construct a major transportation corridor, not only to support Sioux Falls, but the entire region. The blue section on the slide is complete. The green section, all the mainline paving is complete, and the contractor is working on pulling that project through completion by the end of this year. The gray segment between Sycamore Avenue and 57th Street is on track to be bid in October of this year. And then just as a reminder, the state actually funds the 6-lane corridor facility, and the city funds the intersecting arterial streets. And then the last segment between I-29 and Western Avenue, we continue to work with those property owners to reach agreement on the necessary land that's available to build the corridor. Next project is 41st Street and Louise Avenue intersection. This is the next project that was a result of building the 41st Street and I-29 diverging diamond. This will complement that with and move the necessary traffic that's in this area. It'll be a complete resurfacing project, be significant infrastructure upgrades. We'll deploy the latest technology in traffic and street lighting. There'll be enhanced safety with raised medians to improve traffic flow and reduce crashes. We anticipate beginning construction in 2027, has a current engineer's estimate of $16 million. This next slide really speaks to the street rehabilitation blocks that are planned to be improved in this 5-year capital program. The average number of blocks in the streets program rehabilitates approximately 700 per year. We're on track this year to significantly exceed that number with 1,120 blocks due to very competitive bidding and reallocating bid savings to do additional slurry seal, which is the lowest cost maintenance treatment per block, and do additional contract overlay work. To include, there'll be 790 blocks of slurry seal completed in 2026 and 260 blocks of asphalt mill and overlay completed. Our team uses a variety of maintenance treatments to maximize the life of our pavements that we're entrusted to manage. We use the Pavement Condition Index, which measures not only the pavement condition, but the ride quality to develop our maintenance program. And the entire program is focused around maintaining a PCI score of 70 or greater. Team also works closely with our utility partners to coordinate the street improvements with planned upgrades, minimizing disruptions and avoiding duplicate work. When you, just as a perspective on slurry seal, when you compare it to a reconstruction, slurry seal is about 90% less in cost than a reconstruction and can extend the life of that pavement. And so you'll see us really leverage slurry seals so we can continue to maximize and extend the life of those pavements. Next project is I-29 and Minnesota Avenue. This will look very similar to what's being constructed today at Cliff Avenue and I-229. That one's on track to be completed this year. Right now the DOT is contemplating either bidding this project in 27 or 28. The city is a partner in this, as we will fund the intersecting Minnesota Avenue. The project limits on this project are a bit longer than what the Cliff Avenue one is on the intersecting arterial street, and the project limits will extend from Yankton Trail entrance north to 39th Street. Next project is Benson Road from I-29 to Westport Avenue. We're seeing significant amount of growth and development up in this area. We are anticipating to make the improvements to the I-29 interchange with the DOT to enhance that capacity. We'll be lowering Benson Road grade to improve sight distances and adding a traffic signal at the Martindale intersection. Phillips Avenue has been on the drawing board for a number of years between 8th Street and 10th Street, along with a segment of River Road. Our intention is to replace this aging infrastructure and utilities. We'll be adding several streetscape amenities that follows the theme of downtown, and we'll also be coordinating with Xcel Energy. They'll be doing a complete duct bank reconstruction. Our intention is to engage the adjacent property owners and downtown Sioux Falls in 2027 and perform this reconstruction in 2028. Now, County Road 130 that we talked about, that there's 6 partners involved. This County Road 130 borders the north side of Foundation Park and will tie into what the DOT is labeled Exit 86. The red that's shaded there, that's a new diverging diamond that the DOT recently moved up 2 years. And then MC 130 is the blue line that generally runs east and west. Dairy Road runs north and south. That's that blue road. The Development Foundation is constructing that road, and just recently the grading has been let, and just recently bid out the utilities. Later this year they'll bid out the surfacing. The surfacing on Dairy Road will be completed by this time next year. And Exit 86, the reconstruction is anticipated in either 2028 or 2029. Storm drainage. Had a storm drainage conversation on the way in here, and so storm drainage is always very important to make sure that the drainage system works and is managed well to protect private and public property by managing the systems that collect, hold, and release stormwater at a controlled rate. This utility has some very impressive stats. There's over 1,700 acres of land that is in this utility. There's 200 miles of drainage ways. There's 630 miles of storm drainage pipe to maintain and keep clean. There's over 20,000 stormwater inlets. There's 131 stormwater ponds, and the Big Sioux River levee system is 28 miles in length. The key focus areas is safeguard private and public property, balance maintenance and growth, collaborate with developers. This happens on a daily basis, and coordinate with the Veterans Parkway. Significant part of Veterans Parkway as you drive that area is to add those storm drainage ponds, and you can see them very visibly on the first segments that have been done. That carries through on the future segments. Storm drainage team has 17 full-time positions. In 2025, the team removed approximately 66,000 tons of sediment from the city's drainage system. Team works closely with nearby contractors and property owners to appropriately dispose of this material that can be reused in certain installations for fill. This is the revenue picture and the major drivers. There is a 3% rate increase for 2027. The rate increase was previously approved in 2023 that set utility rates for the years of 2024 through 2027. The drainage frontage tax is charged on your property taxes, and the way the fee is calculated is determined by the runoff weighting factor multiplied by the area of the parcel in square feet, multiplied by the unit financial charge in dollars per square foot. If you have any questions on this fee, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to us. The line items for special assessment, those are the two plating fees. It's the drainage system cost recovery plating fee and the regional detention charge plating fee that developers pay. And the miscellaneous $40,000, that's the expected interest earned on with cash on hand. That's calculated into the revenue drivers. All right, a visual way to see this budget is 60% of the storm drainage expenses are related to capital investments. The next 31% is the people and the equipment to complete the work, whether we're repairing an inlet or cleaning out a pond. This is where those funds are deployed to maintain that system. A bit more of a breakdown of the key budget drivers. Wages and benefits increase due to the cost of living increase, and equipment increase due to the additional equipment needed by this division to accomplish their work. 2027 storm drainage capital plan is $10.2 million. The pie chart splits this up into the various programs that are listed below the pie chart. The first one in the upper left that highlights the regional stormwater analysis and improvements has a budget of $3.2 million. There's two key ponds, one in the southwest part of Sioux Falls and another one in the northeast part of Sioux Falls near Foss Avenue. We've also have a number of ponds yet to build with South Veterans Parkway, and that's under the category of drainage in developing areas right next to it. This bar chart gives you a 5-year picture of this capital plan. The increase in 2028 is due to additional investment that will be made into the flood control system. There's a number of metal corrugated pipes that need to be changed out and replaced with concrete. And so just other than that, the 5-year program is generally in that $10 million per year range of investments that are made through those various programs. All right, the next utility is power and distribution. This utility serves nearly 3,000 private, commercial, and government accounts with a combination of overhead and underground primary lines. There's 78 miles of overhead primary lines and 74 miles of underground primary lines. Even though this is a small utility, it serves a number of important accounts such as water purification, water reclamation, the city center, public safety training facility, light and power and traffic building, the airport, the Premier Center. It also serves about 2,000 residential accounts, 650 commercial accounts, 230 industrial and other accounts that strives to ensure they have low-cost, stable power rates. This utility also has no debt. Key focus areas for this division is to provide reliable power while keeping rates low for our customers. Continue to move power lines underground in the core neighborhoods. We've got a key project that's happening right now. If you drive up North Main from downtown up to North Drive, you'll see a large area of this territory. Those overhead lines are being undergrounded. This image shows the aerial view of the electrical substation that serves our customers. This is located just east of the water plant. This team is made up of 15 skilled individuals that run this division. The revenue picture, major drivers, there's no rate increase for this utility for 2027, and the revenues noted show a modest increase from 2026 to 2027. We essentially purchase bulk power from Western Area Power Administration. They're the entity that manages the generation of the electricity on the main stem dams of the Missouri River, and we buy the other half of the power for our customers through Heartland Energy, which is based out of Madison, South Dakota. We've partnered with Heartland Energy on several large load incentive packages when significant facilities have been built, namely the Premier Center, Water Reclamation, Light and Power and Traffic Building, and the Public Safety Campus. With 10-year incentives, that allows us to avoid demand charges for that period of time, significantly reducing our electrical cost. We've gone 9 years without a rate increase from Heartland. A more detailed breakdown of the budget and those major drivers. The bulk electric purchases are increasing as we've added 3 additional customers to this utility, necessitating the need to buy more bulk power, water rec, public safety campus, and light and power facility. The largest budget increase over 2026 shown on this sheet is in our capital investment section, which is nearly up about $1 million. This slide shows the 2027 Power and Distribution Capital Plan at $3.3 million. The key program is additional circuit improvements, just like we talked about, of undergrounding those circuits that are on North Main up toward the prison. In the neighborhood area, we'll be undergrounding 2 more circuits, which we call Circuit 4 and 7. Circuit 4 serves a number of residential properties along Western Avenue and Kiwanis Avenue, and Circuit 7 is a circuit that's in the airport and industrial area. This bar chart shows a good perspective of this capital plan. We essentially have a fairly cyclical capital plan where we do a larger project one year, design it the next, and build up revenues, and then we deploy the next project every other year. And so that's what we're accomplishing to do with this capital plan. And the programs listed below those bar charts are the key programs that we organize this capital plan through. All right, next division is the Sioux Falls Regional Landfill. It serves 5 counties and a population of just over 300,000 people. We take in about 28,000 tons of refuge, including construction and demolition debris, every month. This utility has no debt. It's a 6-day-a-week operation. This is also the team that manages the tree drop-off sites, which were just heavily used after the recent windstorm. If you live in the 5-county region, we always take the opportunity to tell people they get 1 free dump pass every year just by showing their driver's license per resident. And we currently, just to give you a perspective on flow, we average about 600 customers per day, about 4,000 customers per week, and about 15,000 customers per month. Key focus areas for the landfill are providing reliable service, recycling, composting, and reuse programs, position the landfill for regional growth, and maximize the harvest of landfill gas so we can sell it as a beneficial gas source to the Chancellor plant operated by Poet. We're currently working with Councilor Siggety, Basie, and Pankinen, along with a number of stakeholders, to consider policy changes aimed at reversing the downward trend in recycling. Thank you for your time and effort dedicated to this important work. Five-county regional landfill today has a life expectancy till 2074. We're currently undergoing a major permit rewrite that would allow us to add an additional 37 years of airspace or lifespan to the landfill if accepted by the state, which would take our current airspace out from 2074 out to 2111. The landfill operation operates 6 days a week with 31 employees. You've been supportive in us adding strategically equipment operators in recent years. This year we're requesting 1 additional full-time employee, which would be a landfill resource recovery supervisor, to help address the current span of control and workload at the landfill. Key responsibilities of this new position would be to manage the resource recovery at the landfill, customer drop-off area and branch sites, oversee the landfill leachate and landfill gas programs, ensure compliance with landfill regulations and program requirements, and provide additional supervisory capacity to support the 6-day-a-week operation. This slide gives you a good picture of the major revenue drivers for 2027. There is a $1 per ton rate increase planned in January of 2027. This was previously approved in 2023, setting utility rates for the years of 2024 through 2027. In 2027, the municipal solid waste and the construction and demolition debris tipping fee will be the same at $42 a ton. The state does ask us to charge one additional surcharge $1 on MSW, and then that gets routed to the state, and they do a number of programs getting those revenues from all the regional landfills across the state. A different visual way to look at the major drivers of the 2027 budget is 41% of this budget is made up of the people and equipment needed to run the landfill. 37% of this is for a major cell construction project to ensure continuity and continuation of the landfill. This is a further breakdown of the major drivers for the 2027 budget. A major increase here is the top line, which is the capital line item to fund that new landfill cell. Also worth highlighting, we've been working with the Mayor's Office and the Secretary of Corrections as they're bringing back the inmate labor program, which has been a terrific resource for the landfill, to have anywhere from 2 to 6 inmates come out every day to help us with everything from picking up litter to trimming to mowing and essentially maintaining our permit and making the landfill show better. The cost difference is substantial. It costs us about $1.25 per hour using inmate labor versus a private vendor cost of about $25 an hour. Landfill capital plan, anytime we venture to build a new cell, that captures the majority, which is the dark blue area. That is to fund cell 5, which would be constructed in 2027. The next major investment is shown in light blue, which is to maximize the leachate and landfill gas collection that happens continuously at the landfill. A picture always helps to orientate yourself to the landfill. The landfill today is approximately 790 acres in size. The blue dot labeled number 1, right generally in the center, a little bit off to the left, that's the current landfill cell that's being filled today. The blue dot labeled number 5, that will be landfill cell that will be excavated and built in 2027. And the green dot that's just to the east or just to the right is future cell 10. And this is the next cell that's in the CIP. We've got design dollars in 2031 and then construction in 2032. The dashed area that we talked about with the major permit modification is in that northwest area. And if supported by the state to add this to our landfill footprint, we can achieve an additional 37 years of airspace and significantly expand the lifespan of the landfill. This bar chart gives you a really good picture of the landfill capital plan. Once we get through a cell construction like we're planning in 2027, this is a relatively flat, typical for this fund as we continue to maintain adequate cash reserves to support the next landfill construction project. Water. The Water Division operates in the facilities that harvest, treat, and deliver potable water to our customers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The 2027 operational and capital budget for water is $53.8 million. This utility will be debt-free in November of 2026. We'll make the last debt payment on the Lewis and Clark loan that funded the base system here in just a couple of months. Key focus areas for water is deliver sustainable and a reliable resource. continue investing in existing infrastructure, and secure our future water supply. Through the investments the City of Sioux Falls has made, our current water resources are well positioned for the next 40 years on the current growth path. In looking into the future, Sioux Falls has taken an all-the-above approach to extend our current water resources and also secure our future water resources. The first initiative is Water Conservation 2.0. Sioux Falls team is currently reviewing proposals to study the next round of water conservation concepts to consider appropriate initiatives to conserve and extend the life of our current and future water resources. The next opportunity will be to expand our well capacity in the Big Sioux River aquifer, along with the associated treatment as our community grows. And last, the city is involved in the preliminary efforts with two major water systems, Lewis and Clark's second expansion and Dakota Main Stem. These are large-scale regional water systems that will likely take federal dollars to become a reality. We'll be at the table. With both of those, we've made a request for an additional 40 million gallons of water for our future water source to take us from a 40-year planning horizon out to 75 to 100 years. 2027 revenue, major drivers. Included in this revenue is a 4% rate increase in 2027. This was previously approved in 2023, setting utility rates for 2024 through 2027. The major increase in miscellaneous, the second line item, is tied to the interest income from the settlement dollars that we have. Visual picture of where these dollars will be directed to for 2027. 50% of them will be made with capital investments. Then wages and benefits is 18%, and bulk water purchases from Lewis and Clark make up 14%. More detailed breakdown of the budget and major drivers for 2027 on this slide. This utility will be debt-free in November of 2026 with a final payment to Lewis and Clark's base system. All future projects are planned with user fees in the 5-year plan and don't contemplate taking on additional debt. The 2027 water capital plan is $27 million, as the pie chart is graphically depicts, and the major programs are shown underneath the pie chart. Lewis and Clark is currently expanding to add an additional 15.8 million gallons per day to the current system. Contractually, we were able to purchase 6.4 million gallons of that 15.8 million gallons of additional capacity. We'll accomplish this by paying for it in cash and spreading those payments out over the next 5 years. The other program to note is transmission system improvements. A key project to highlight here is we'll be running a second water main on Kiwanis up to Foundation Park to serve those customers. This bar chart shows a different visualization of what the 5-year capital program is. As you look across those bars, the 2029 and 2030 grow. That's where the larger payments to the additional water that we can purchase from Lewis and Clark will be made. There's a $14.5 million payment and just under $10 million payment that's incorporated into those two bar charts. Water reclamation is responsible for operating, maintaining the wastewater conveyance, piping, and pump stations, and the treatment facility. The operational and capital budget for 2027 is $81 million. Key focus areas for water reclamation is delivering reliable service, keeping pace with growth, maintaining adequate treatment facility capacity, and expanding development of new sewer basins to meet the growth needs of Sioux Falls. The 2027 revenue budget major drivers are listed on this slide. There's a 5% rate increase planned in January of 2027. This rate increase was previously approved in 2023, setting the utility rates for 2024 through 2027. A significant revenue change or decrease is noted here due to the timing of capital investments that have worked through the system as it relates to the 2026 revenues over the 2027. The improvements we've made and continue to make put us in a really good position from a treatment capacity for approximately the next 20 years. The visual view of where those dollars will be directed to with the water reclamation budget, 49% of the revenues will be directed to capital investments, 29% will be directed to servicing the debt, and wages and benefits are 10%, and the balance is shown in those smaller areas. This slide shows the budget breakdown in a little bit greater detail, again, with the decrease of about $23.6 million as we look at 26 compared to 27 is, again, largely due to the timing of capital projects from one year to the next. 2027 water capital plan of $39.3 million. The pie chart there shows those breakdowns with the associated programs listed below. The sewer basin improvements is by far the largest portion of this next capital plan. In the southeast area, and we've got a graphic that shows these three areas here in a minute. The southeast area will make an additional $37 million in investments in this 5-year plan. The northeast area up near the Veterans Cemetery and the lake will make an investment of an additional $24 million in this 5-year capital plan. And the west side, just getting done with the major lift station and the key trunk mains over there, in this 5-year capital plan will make an investment of additional $12.7 million. This is the 5-year capital plan for water reclamation, generally level with the exception of 2028. We're currently studying our fat soils and grease and studying our options for biogas, and we have a budgetary placeholder in there of about $27 million to either clean up that gas and use it for beneficial use on site or clean it to pipeline quality and put it into a pipeline. This slide shows those pictures of the three areas where the city of Sioux Falls is currently growing. In the southeast, that red area, the northeast area, and that large red area, and then on the west side, that large red area. Underneath those red boxes, which are the ultimately served areas, is the tier maps. The blue area is what we call Tier 1. That's what we believe will have sewer either today or within the next 5 years. The green is 6 to 15 years, and the orange is 16 to 25 years. So it gives the development community a really good predictor of what land has sewer today or when will it have sewer. And our last division for today is Fleet. Fleet Division is an internal service fund and has a 2027 budget of $21.2 million. Key focus areas for Fleet is to share equipment. Secondly, leverage data and technology to optimize the operation and life cycle of that equipment. And then last, to operate the 4 fueling stations to have safe and reliable fueling locations. Our fleet team manages more than 2,000 pieces of equipment across the city, ranging from concrete saws, generators, pickup trucks, and trailers to police vehicles and landfill compactors. The team operates across 4 shop locations: fleet, landfill, police, and parks, working collaboratively to maintain and manage this equipment to ensure city employees have the tools and resources they need to keep our operations running effectively. The 2027 budget drivers are listed on this slide. The majority of the $2.4 million change in the top line item is for the additional 34 motor graders and the planned potential purchase for the 10 that are coming off lease in 2028. We've purchased those machines, so we need to maintain them. We also have to start to collect rent so we can replace them at a point in the future. A graphic to show you the breakdown of the budget. 47% of this budget will be invested into capital. Parts and commercial repairs is 32%, wages and benefits is 16%, and other is 5%. This gives you a bit more of a breakdown with the fleet budget. One of the conversations I had with a counselor recently is fuel costs and how are we managing through that with the volatility that we're seeing across the country with fuel costs. Just want to give you some assurance. I know that this was talked about as well at the kickoff. We budgeted about $3.5 million for fuel in 2026. Year to date, with 7 months closed, we've spent about $1.8 million. So if you run that out, we should finish the year at about $3.1 million. Just to give you a perspective of what we budgeted and what we purchased last. So we budgeted diesel at $4.20 a gallon, and our last purchase was at $3.90. And then our unleaded, we budgeted at $3.20, and our last purchase was at $3.10. So overall, we feel very comfortable with where our budget is. We are always hopeful that fuel will go down. It's a key input. We purchase fuel weekly, so it does dollar cost average for us all across the year. Fuel, just for your reference, is a part of that second line item, which is parts and commercial repair. Fleet capital plan is largely made up of purchasing equipment. It's got a capital plan of $9.9 million. There's a list of replacement items that are in your capital book. Just a couple notable ones. In 2027, we'll purchase a landfill compactor. That will cost about $1.8 million. Storm drainage will have a jet vac truck of about $800,000. And an excavator of $275,000. Streets will have 4 sanders at about $400,000, and the list goes on. This is the division's plan for this. They pay in rental rates, so when the replacement is time, the funds are in place to make those purchases. There's a 5-year outlook of the capital plan. The first half of the plan includes a significant investment in heavy equipment like we just talked about with landfill compactors and water reclamation vac trucks. Beginning in 2029, many of these high-cost equipment items will have been purchased and will get down to a more consistent normal rate. And with that, that is the divisions of Public Works. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to present our budget to you, and we have our team here today. If you do have any questions, we'd love to answer them.
Thank you, Director Cotter. We'll get started with some questions. Councilors, who wants to get us started? Councilor Pankinen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to ask you if there's a limit to the number of questions I could have.
2 questions, and we'll go around, and then we'll come back with more.
All right, thank you. Then I'm going to move all the way back to the beginning. And I think you started out, Director Cotter, by mentioning the cameras. Mm-hmm. And I was curious if the data from the observation cameras will be kept entirely within the control and accessibility to data of city departments and city employees.
Let me see who's best to answer that question on data. Thank you.
Sean Franken, Finance Business Analyst. Yes, that's all kept in the city. We're the only ones that have access.
Thank you. And then, since there were 2, the other question I had was on the city's motor graders. And I was curious if during the summer months, if they're put to use, or when there's not snowfall, or is there a percentage of those motor graders that we're owning now that will be put to use?
I'll have Dustin Hanson come up, our Senior Operations Manager, to speak to that.
Dustin Hanson, Street Operations Manager. Yes, a few of those are used during the summer months for road grading. We typically have 18 to 25 miles of gravel road, plus some alleyways around the city that those motor graders are utilized.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll come back, Counselor Pankinen. Counselor Thomason.
Director Cotter, you talked about the landfill and a couple things in the next couple of years that you want to do there. Realistically, how long do you think that landfill can be a landfill?
Well, the current airspace that we study, and we've, we map that every year, and we, we closely monitor what our compaction rates are. We feel really confident with the current growth of the 5-county area and the amount of waste that's coming in that we'll achieve 2074, and if we can permit that additional acreage, that we'll get it past the year 2100. Donnie, anything additional you'd like to add to that?
Just our 1% projection rate. So.
I'll have Donnie Cooper come up here as well.
Yeah, so we do an airspace utilization each year, and so we'll get a projection rate and we'll project how much waste is coming in based on a 1% growth throughout the 5-county region.
And since I get two questions, I guess I'll use my last one. But do we have any concern about the growth of the city and growth of other communities running into the landfill at some point and how it will be able to develop around there?
No, currently, like Mark said, we're just under 800 acres. We're able to permit all of that. Currently, we are permitting we're at about 300 acres of footprint of landfill now. We have many more acres that we can do another permit modification in the future to expand that landfill even more. So no concerns with future growth.
Counselor Coué.
So, Director Carter, in regards to the landfill, I'm just curious about the life cycle of a single cell, because I drive out there, twice or 3 times a year, and I'm just stunned by the amount of garbage that the region produces. What does our sustainability look like so that we're being good stewards of the land?
Donnie, do you want to speak to that as well? We'll have Josh Peterson come up here for that question.
Hi, Josh Peterson, the Environmental Services Manager, and if I understood your question correctly, it was about the sustainability of the waste coming in and what we're doing with recycling and waste diversion. Is that correct? Okay. So yes, so we have multiple programs we're working on for waste diversion. Our longest running and most successful has been our single stream recycling program. We have seen a drop in the recycling rate over the last few years, which is why we're working on initiatives with some of the city councilors that have expressed some interest with working with us. We also have a task force with a number of industry representatives and public representatives as well that are helping us to understand what positive changes we can make. The other things we do is the branch drop-off site we just had, and we have it the spring and the fall. All that wood waste and the yard waste that we collect, that is diverted from the landfill as well. The wood waste is ground up and sold. The yard waste is composted, and so we work very hard on finding new opportunities to divert waste so that we can continue with that 1% growth in waste that we've seen in the past.
Please continue.
Director Carter, this is in regards to the motor grader. So we're moving from this rental model to a city-owned model. What's the replacement cycle for that, for those motor graders?
Dean, do you want to speak to? So I'll bring up Dean Borkhardt, our Business Operations Manager.
All right, getting everybody some camera time today.
Yeah.
Dean Borkart, Public Works Business Operations. We are purchasing new the 34. We've placed those on a 15-year replacement cycle based upon the number of hours that we have put on those machines. So we will extend that life cycle out to 15 years. We don't have any concerns about that, like I said, just based upon the current utilization rate.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Oppenheimer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thanks for the presentation, Director Cotter. I appreciate it. And thank you for taking the fuel questions that I had talking about that. My questions are around the different intersections that are going to be potentially bid out. We've got 4 major intersections that are either going to be bid out in 27, 28. What is the time frame for that? Is this when they would first start construction? Would they be offset, or would we see 4 intersections under construction at the same time?
Typically, we can build an intersection in a year, just with the demands and the need to keep people moving. They usually are done to a certain extent under traffic. We can certainly do a deeper dive on expected construction sequencing on those 4 if they're traditional intersections. If they're interchanges, then we start to go into 2-year constructions. And so every project is different. If you've got a particular one, I do have Andy Berg here, city engineer, we could potentially try to unpack that further, or we could follow up with it too.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councilor Sigety, some Marion Road comments?
Thank you,
please?
Mr. Chair. How'd you know? Thank you, Director. I actually have a handful of questions, but they're very specific, so I'll email you and your team.
Okay.
But I did want the mic for 2 seconds to just thank you publicly. I've called you out publicly, you and your team, about North Marion Road a number of times over the last 2 years. So thank you for listening. Thank you for doing all the traffic studies. Thank you, Andy. I'm very, very happy that it's now in the 5-year plan.
Excellent.
Councilor Basie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director, I'm thinking about some of the major intersection projects where we've had grant funding or we've planned for grants but maybe struggled to receive them or receive the total amounts. Maybe just generally speaking, there's some big monumental projects in here. Could you maybe just give an update on kind of what your team's mentality is as your budget planning, knowing that we've had some challenges with the grants in the past?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. We approach our capital plan, we set it up in programs, and then within those programs are a list of projects that are under those by priority. And so essentially, we know we can have a dependable revenue stream with sales tax. If we're fortunate, like Arrowhead and Veterans Parkway, to get a significant grant, and that was just about $14 million, then that allows us to go farther down the list and bid the next project. So setting up, you'll see that most of our capital plan is set up in a programmatic way that has a list of projects underneath them. And so then in converse, if we don't get a grant, then we're only going to get so much done that year, but then that program lives, and so then the next year we'll get to that next priority. So if that answers the question, that's how we generally approach things.
Sounds great. Let's get rolling with some second set of questions. Councilor Thomason, did you have anything beyond the first 2?
I do not. Thank you very much for asking.
Councilor Pankinen, some follow-up questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It would be on slide 15, which it's to the mill and overlay. And I was curious of what percentage of the 199 blocks are already planned or allocated for next year? And then when you look at that 5-year plan as well, you know, what percentage each year is already known, you know, which streets will be mill and overlaid?
I'll work to get back to the slide, and I'm going to bring up Wes Phillips to speak more to that program.
Wes Phillips, Engineering Program Manager and former street engineer. The mill and overlay, we plan typically about 1 year ahead. We have a firm plan of the streets that we're going to tackle the next year. We have kind of a phased approach with concrete repairs the first year for about half of those streets, and that repairs the curb and gutter, the valley gutters, the ADA curb ramps, And then typically then the following year, we would approach the neighborhood with a mill and overlay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, Counselor, you want to follow up on?
Yeah, I think just one more, which now is on slide 57, which is closer to where you just were, but that's, it's the debt service more out at water rec, I think, is underwater reclamation, and that debt service of 29% in the 2027 budget. And I was just curious how last year's capital of 68 million maybe jumped the debt service to 29% perhaps, and then if the capital planned in 27 will kind of jump that debt service percentage again for a while.
Do we want to speak
So it's
to
kind
that
of
and follow up?
57 and 58.
I think we can probably, just with that being a fairly specific question,
Mhm.
would you mind if we followed up on that?
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds great. Thank
Very
you.
good.
Other follow-up questions, Counselors? Director Cotter, I have two. First, considering the request for further full-time employees, what other technological options were considered, potentially using AI, or other contracting options were considered before making the request for an additional employee?
I'd have to give that some additional thought. You know, we've got so much, the signal systems are mechanical. They will break. They've got to be maintained by people. But we can certainly give that some additional thought. I'm not aware that we leveraged AI to actually maintain those systems. As the system continues to grow, we've got to make sure that we have the adequate coverage. And it's not just 8 to 5. It's a 7-day-a-week operation. And so, but we can certainly visit with our team to see what additional resources may be available.
Thank you. The second question is more of a detailed question, looking at the CIP project, specifically the downtown area, street and utility. We look at the 2026 plan to 2030 plan versus what's being proposed today of 2027 through 2031. Can you walk us through kind of in the original 2026 to 2030 plan, you know, I look at the description of last year's CIP and the description of this year's CIP. The description's exactly the same, but the dollar amount is substantially changed. So what changed in the CIP plans in regards? I see that Phillips Avenue. When was the Phillips Avenue previously planned before when it's being proposed to be planned down?
I think we'll have to do a look back in history and maybe also provide you a follow-up on that. Part of the dollars that came from the capital surplus went into that program so we could actually make sure we could translate that project to reality. But if you'll allow us to, let us follow up and we'll do the comparison of where it was first placed and where it's currently at.
Great, appreciate that. Thank you. Any final questions, Councilors? All right, thank you, Director.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll now turn our time to the Parks and Recreation Department and invite forward Brett Collars. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I almost wanted to say evening. It's like a time warp here in Carnegie.
Yeah, Cotter kind of takes everything long.
Forever 6 p.m. here. I didn't mean that. He steered it in that direction. I did not. No, good afternoon. Brett Collars, Assistant Director with Parks and Recreation. Proud to be joined by several leaders with our Parks and Recreation Department, our partners in finance, and also our partner and CEO, Becky DeWitts with Great Plains Zoo. Overall, the proposed budget's at $45.8 million. It's largely flat outside of wage and benefit increases and some cost escalations, namely in chemicals that you've heard from other departments as well. Throughout today's slides, I'll make a point to highlight several keys. There's increases in forestry expenses, in part stemming from a USDA forestry grant, locally referred to as Community Tree Program, and also changing the special assessment period from 1 year to 7 years for dead or diseased trees. Prioritization of neighborhood parks and trails in the capital improvement plan, and proposed capital support for the Sioux Falls Zoo and Aquarium, including $2.5 million from the sales tax fund in 2027 and a one-time $4 million support from the entertainment tax fund. Setting the table first. This slide outlines focus areas for Parks and Recreation, directed from our 5-year system plan. Programming-wise, our facility investments, they include year-round recreation, and given our climate, we're namely talking indoor recreation there. Prioritization of neighborhood parks, as I mentioned, as well as the recreation trail. Strategically, keeping pace with growth, geographically expanding our system, adding to our system as the city grows, but also operationally finding efficiencies, robots, cost accounting, making informed decision-making in purchases, streamlined permitting processes, partnering with Department of Corrections with labor, mobile applications, improving resident experience and efficiencies for our front staff. Keeping pace is as dependent on leaning on our partnerships as well, from philanthropic relationships to management partners, hundreds of user groups in between. We're not here today with the system that we have without our partners. And an additional focus area is creating a sustainable urban canopy. The emerald ash borer infestation is in full effect. As important as safety is building back our urban canopy. To continue to set that table, we've got a system to be proud of. Thank you, City Council. Thank you, residents, for your continued engagement. We've got 41 miles of trail plus some. We've got 82 developed parks and nearly 3,500 acres of park. Welcome. This table outlines our operational cost allocation by park program, if you would. 1/3 of our resources are delivered to the bread and butter, really the foundation of the system and what we provide. That's parks and playgrounds. Another 1/6 is aquatics, which includes outdoor pools and Midco Aquatic Center. Indoor recreation, forestry, athletic facilities each consume roughly 1/9. The remaining each make up less than 10% of the budget apiece. The zoo is worth mentioning here. You'll note it listed at $2.5 million. This $2.5 million is comprised of a $2 million annual support payment, plus Parks and Recreation's internal resources allocated for grounds maintenance of the space. It's largely a labor cost, both full-time and part-time. Key initiatives in 2027 include graduating from design into construction for the recreation center planned at Frank Olson Park, capital support for the aquarium and operationalizing the butterfly house, investments into the parks across the system, namely neighborhood parks, addressing storage needs as our city grows, growing back the urban canopy. On the whole, our satisfaction scores remain high in relation to our region and national partners. Thank you again to our residents for your continued support of Parks and Recreation. Staff-wise, we're staying at 91 full-time staff. We continue to strive to provide a more year-round offering, but we're still quite a cyclical program, if you would. In the summer, we balloon up to nearly, we call it 400 part-time staff. That equates to 163 full-time equivalents in part-time labor. Our dependence on part-time labor is a key piece to what we do, and this slide, this chart illustrates that. You'll notice full-time wages comprise a lesser portion of the sum than you'd see otherwise. Relying on part-time labor is a double-edged sword for us. It works well as we cyclically ramp up to meet the demand of the public. It provides us flexibility in managing variable expenses and agility to react to various financial pressures. It also creates a burden in hiring, training, allocating resources, consistency. But our system largely leans on our part-time labor. This table outlines budgeted revenue. Revenue in Parks and Recreation is a dance with accessibility. We prioritize accessibility and also have a financial stewardship responsibility. Overall, the system operates at 18% cost recovery. We don't often measure it as a system as a whole. However, there are certain assets we take a closer look at when it comes to cost recovery, and I'll use this table to call out a few of those. The top line is trees. That is associated with that USDA, the federal forestry grant. Westside Recreation Center is budgeted at 68% cost recovery with $1.5 million in revenue and $2.2 million in operating expense, giving you a net of $700,000 loss annually. Actuals match this net of $700,000 annual loss. Both expenses and revenue continue to mature. They're at 1.5 million at expenses for Westside Rec Center and 900 in revenue. So that net is matching, but we continue to see the facility mature. Midco Aquatic Center is budgeted to operate at a 46% cost recovery with 1.1 million in revenue and 2.5 in operating expenses, and the actuals match this scenario. Outdoor pools operate at 18% cost recovery with a budgeted $525,000 in revenue and $3 million in operating expense. This table outlines our budgeted expenses and is the bulk of the story for Parks and Recreation. First, I'll point out just the overall difference from 2026 to 2027. Operationally, this is a 5.1% increase, and that's really driven by two drivers. That's that increase in wage benefits, as well as our forestry expenses, which are offset in part through that federal grant received. If you remove these two drivers, the change is 1.4%, and that's largely through those cost escalations we're seeing in namely chemicals. I'll step through where you'll note more significant changes in the change column there. Going from top to bottom, again, full-time wages and benefits, as you've noticed in other budget hearings. Indoor aquatics and recreation centers with an increase of $137,000. That's due to chemical cost escalations. Outdoor pools is a similar story in chemical cost escalations. I'll highlight tree removal and planting. That change is at $630,000. I've mentioned the USDA forestry grant that's playing a portion of that, but there's roughly half of that, roughly $300,000, that is expense increase in changing the special tax assessment period from 1 year to 7 years for dead or diseased trees. Another change on here, not a large amount, but a different change from the others in that it's a negative or a decrease. You'll notice in the recreation partners line. This is a scheduled decrease in support payment to the Sioux Falls School District in helping stand up the Community Learning Center model. The support payment is scheduled to sunset entirely in 2028, with the final payment being $150,000. Not a change noted on this table from year to year, but another line I'd like to draw out is the zoo support payment at $2 million. This support payment saw a 10% increase in 2023, a 17% increase in 2024, bringing us to the $2 million that it's at now. This payment equates to 27% of the Sioux Falls Zoo's annual operating expense, which aligns with the industry expected range that's between 25 and 30%. The slides begin to transition into the capital improvement plan proposed. So it's important to set the table. Again, we're going to draw from our 5-year system plan and remind us of the priorities that the community has set. From a facility investment perspective, you'll notice neighborhood parks and trails leading the way, with natural areas being right there as well. A grouping of indoor recreation-related amenities to follow, and rounded out entirely by outdoor swimming and large community parks, all in that high priority category. The capital plan strives for a 60% investment in renewal, 20% for system growth, and 20% for transformational projects. Recent projects have steered more toward that transformational aspect, and we're grateful for those opportunities, and we are excited in this proposed plan to get back to the basics, if you would. You'll notice a significant investment in neighborhood parks and trails. I'm going to jump back to that last slide. My notes tell me to go here first. This chart illustrates the proposed composition of the capital improvement plan over the next 5 years. And I'd like to spend a moment on where you'll see the disproportionate jumps in these various categories. And I'll start in 2027. 2027, you'll notice a jump in the Navy bar, if you would, or planning and land category. This is the proposed $2.5 million in support for the Sioux Falls Zoo and Aquarium project. In 2028, you notice a jump in the red category, which is our facility and structure improvements. This is the proposed cold storage to support our operations team. It's been in the plan for some years and will reduce repair expenses to equipment that sits outside currently. In 2029, you'll see a significant jump in that lighter blue, which is for park improvements. This is driven by expected external contributions led by and for the Mary Jo Wagner Arboretum's Adventure and Learning Conservatory project. In 2030 and 2031, we'll assume back to a familiar look in prioritizing trails and park improvements. I mentioned the proposed $2.5 million to support the zoo's capital program in 2027. These dollars were originally planned to be paid over 5 years, 2025 through 2029, and are being proposed to be provided as a lump sum payment in 2027, and there is an additional $500,000 that's scheduled for 2026. In addition to the sales tax fund support, the city is proposing a one-time $4 million payment from the entertainment tax fund. This proposed $4 million would in effect become $14 million as it moves the Sioux's fundraising campaign past a benchmark, which triggers a donor's additional $10 million. The proposed $4 million one-time disbursement is conditioned that the zoo achieves full funding of the project costs, among other conditions. The proposed 2.5 from the sales tax fund, with the proposed 4 from the entertainment tax fund, would bring the city's overall contributions to an approximate 10% of the overall project cost. This map illustrates trail investments of both new and reconstruction of existing trail. The blue line indicates new, while the red line indicates reconstruction of existing. In 2027, it's proposed to construct Phase 2 of the Cherry Creek Trail Corridor, extending the trail from Songbird to Madison Street on the west side of town. Also in 2027, we propose reconstructing the southeastern spur in southeast Sioux Falls, and design of the reconstruction for the northwest segment that would run from Maple to Sanford Sports Complex, which would be proposed for reconstruction in 2028. Each of these segments focuses on high priorities identified in the Sioux Falls Bicycle Plan and aligns with connectivity in the park system, while also keeping up with segments of the existing trail that need addressing. This map illustrates park investment, both new and renewal. The goal is broad distribution of these improvements, and you'll see that on the map. I'll highlight new neighborhood park developments we're excited to propose, and I'll take a moment to thank Councilor Basie and your leadership in steering these efforts. Notably, I'd like to call forward Wild Meadows at 6th and Dubuque, Willow Ridge, it's on 6 Mile Road just north of Arrowhead Parkway, adjacent to Brandon's Fred Assam Elementary, Whispering Woods near Bonson and 69th Street, adjacent to Harrisburg Horizon Elementary, and Majestic Meadows near 41st Street and 6 Mile Road near Ben Rifle Middle School, adjacent to Brandon's Inspiration Elementary School. Again, the goal is to address community priorities equally across town, be it new or renewal of existing parks. And with that, my team, myself, and our partners in finance are available for questions.
Great. Thank you, Brett. Councilors, open it up for questions. Let's go. Councilor Spellerberg.
Might as well get started.
Let's do it.
So West Side Recreation Center, we've got a full year in the books running it. Where we lost about $700,000 on that.
Yep.
Is that in line with where we thought it is? Is cost recovery in line with where we thought it was?
Yeah, so the $700,000 matches what we'd budgeted and expected there, but we are still seeing a maturation of both revenue and expenses. The early pro forma and as we budgeted, let me jump back. We're at 1.5 revenue and estimating a 2.2, 2.3 in expenses. What we're seeing is 900,000 in revenue and a 1.5 in expenses. So that difference is matching, but we still continue to see, like I say, we introduced indoor playground there recently. It hasn't quite caught an entire winter yet. We continue to build our instructor roster, building out programs, which adds expense, but also adds to the passes. So it is right in line with where we're expecting it to be, but maturing in different ways.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Sigety.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. A couple questions. We've kind of been talking lately, Councilor Thomason and myself and you about golf, possibly adding a golf course. Can you tell me, and the next step is to a golf study. Can you just assure me that there's money in this budget to do that golf study?
So we would look to our golf capital fund to do that, and it's a conversation we've had with our golf partners. But the margin that we realize in the golf fund contributes to our golf improvement projects, which would include planning. So it wouldn't draw from here. Okay,
fantastic. And then my second one, ice rinks. Last year, outdoor ice rinks, non-refrigerated. I know the numbers are tough, just how much they cost us. And I think we did phase one last year in the budget to stop outdoor ice on a couple of them. And I believe the cost savings was gonna be like 90,000 or 100,000. Was that realized? I mean, did we actually save some money closing those? And then two, did you get a lot of public feedback of people that were disappointed?
There was public feedback, yes, but we were able to maintain, we opened Jacobson Plaza, which brought on 30,000 skaters, which triples what we'd seen of all natural ice rinks combined. So we're really eager to lean into that refrigerated experience better. It's a more reliable product that we can offer. Yes, we did realize those cost savings, namely in our reduced variable expenses. You don't have to staff it with part-time labor, so you realize savings immediately there.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Basie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few, but I'll start with a couple if that's okay. Going back to Councilor Spellerberg's questions about West Side Rec, cost recovery, zooming that out a little bit, thinking about Frank Olson, that's in process. And, if you think all the way back to when we purchased West Side Rec, we had a conversation about fee structures. That conversation evolved a little bit into kind of this, I'm going to call it a tiered structure of all the parks offering of creating a philosophy around, hey, what services are at what cost recovery? Can you give an update on that or talk about that? I don't think we've seen something, so I'm not sure how it influences how you're coming up with budget numbers.
Sure. Yeah, we talked about, I like how you described it as a tiered model. Right? Like much of what we provide is a core essential service and available at no cost to the consumer, right? Our parks and playgrounds, namely. As you step up that pyramid, if you would, in tiers, and the activity becomes more toward individual gain at the loss of general public access, that expectation and cost recovery steps up. Sioux Falls still prioritizes accessibility above many things, and so you see West Side Recreation Center budgeted at that 68% cost recovery mark, where you see our outdoor pools closer to that 18% mark. That's all that variation in weighing accessibility, weighing individual gain versus general public access. I look forward to Frank Olson fee schedule conversations. I recall them well, and we'll look to have those discussions with City Council as we prepare for a 2029 opening there. And I expect that tiered approach, that philosophy of weighing individual gain and general public access to weigh in strongly in those conversations.
And for clarity, not just we're not talking about just a Frank Olson individualized fee structure, but I mean park services and offerings across the board, right? We're on the same page about that?
Yeah, I think the fee schedule needs to evolve as the system evolves. And so as we continue to introduce new assets, it behooves us to explore how well it's kept up as the environment around us, costs change, our city grows, and we know in many ways we're a regional provider, and we need to be considering that through those conversations as well as we look to our neighbors. So there's a lot of factors that weigh into that equation, and I know we're looking forward to sorting through that with City Council.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go on another one.
Thank you. I'll maybe switch gears a little bit. You had some commentary in here about zoo support, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly and we're talking about it correctly, because we also have an entertainment tax presentation later today. If I'm not mistaken, you've commented about zoo support from both the Parks and Rec budget that you're presenting on, but then also entertainment tax in your presentation. Am I understanding that correctly?
You've got that right. Thank you for the chance to clarify. So I referenced a $2.5 million proposed in the Parks and Recreation Sales Tax Fund Capital Improvement Plan. I jumped ahead and gave a peek to our upcoming Entertainment Tax Fund budget hearing, where there's a proposed one-time payment of $4 million. In addition to that, in our operating expenses for Parks and Recreation, annually we provide $2 million in support of the zoo. When you noticed our program of our cost allocations, it was listed at a 2.5. That 2.5 is comprised of that $2 million annual support payment. In addition to the direct resources that Parks and Recreation provides, we do have full-time staff in that space, in that park, providing grounds maintenance. Basically anything that's, I'll say it simply, anything that's not an exhibit at the zoo is maintained by park staff. So of that 2.5, 2 is that support payment, 5 is that parks commitment from our largely labor. It's about $350,000 in labor and then $150,000 in supplies, materials, repairs, maintenance.
We'll come back for more. Is that okay, Councilor Basie?
Second.
We'll come back to you for more. Is
Yes,
that all right?
totally fine.
Perfect. Let's go down here to Councilor Pankinen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Circling back on that West Side Recreation Center expense, I'm just curious if, based on the planned expenses exceeding revenue at the West Side Recreation Center, if I'm, correct in analyzing this, and really my question is, when property taxes are paid in Sioux Falls, are the property taxes being spent in a way that competes with privately owned and operated gyms?
Yeah, I think that's a layered conversation and one we had leading up to West Side Recreation Center as well as Frank Olson and really updating our aquatic system. I look forward to carrying that conversation on outside of this to give it its due credit. What I'd say is the word competition, I don't know how well it can be cast on that when you consider that amenities within Frank Olson. Yes, it would have a degree of fitness to it, which was the focus of some of the past conversations. But when you consider other amenities such as an indoor playground, aquatics, community gathering rooms, I may be missing the most important piece of this. I'd encourage us to think of the neighborhoods invested in as well. Frank Olson Park and the neighborhood that surrounds it has more families below that federal poverty level than what we typically see in Sioux Falls. In fact, it's about twice the median. And levels of physical inactivity there too, they're about 30% higher than what you'd see in the Sioux Falls median as well. So even if we cast it in a competition lens, which I'm cautious to do, I'd encourage us to consider the neighborhood at which the investment is being made and ask ourselves if the private sector would be interested in that as well.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I could add to that, I learned through conversations leading up to today too that there is a sledding hill being added in the plan for Frank Olson Pool, so thank you. Mm-hmm. And I had one more question here, and it's more about kind of the budget and operating budget and the percentage that's going to indoor versus outdoor, which I think goes back to cost recovery, which is the cost recover concept. I appreciate that there's been work on that and that continues. When I was crunching the numbers kind of more in the budget book over the last few weeks, I noticed that the expense for the Midco years ago when we didn't have the West Side Recreation Center or when we didn't have the Jacobson Plaza, when we only had the Midco pool, then the percentage of indoor rec was about 8 to 9% of your Parks and Rec budget to operate just the Midco pool. And then over the last few years, we've added the West Side Recreation Center and the Jacobson Plaza. So now there's 3 facilities. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the expense of those 3 added as a percentage to the total of the Parks and Rec operating budget, it's up to 17% now. Mm-hmm. And I was projecting that it might jump up to over 20 and to maybe even to 24%. And I also noticed that that is significantly higher than our comparison cities. So my question then is, what did the Parks and Rec master plan indicate in regards to the need for the Frank Olson Pool and the projected effect on the park's operating budget as a whole?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, the financial stewardship in mind. I think what you're seeing is a system that's evolving to meet the community's expectations and priorities. It's in our existing system plan, which was recently adopted and will guide us through 2030. And that same need and expectation priority was top of the list in our previous plan, 2020 through 2025. So we're striving to meet that expectation of the community. We see indoor recreation heavily utilized, like Midco Aquatic Center, for example. Little known fact about it, its strongest month is July, right? The heat still brings people indoors. So just given our climate and what we hear from our community and what they want to see out of our parks and recreation system, we'll continue to strive toward those year-round opportunities, namely indoor recreation.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for continuing to maintain all those trails and green spaces and outdoor pools as well, so thank you.
Councilor Thomason.
Thank you, and this might be for the Honorable Director Pritchett, I'm not sure. With the zoo and the sales tax fund support, how often have we as a city accelerated the originally planned payments that are over 5 years into condensing it basically into 1 year, whether that's been with the pavilion or with the Levitt?
So the condensing into one is from the sales tax fund, not entertainment tax fund?
Right.
Okay.
Because it says originally it was planned from 2026 to 2029 for 3 million, but we're saying we want to do essentially all of that in 2027. How often have we
advanced forward?
Yeah.
Thanks for your question. Sean Pritchett, Director of Finance. In the last 8 years, I'm not aware of a situation like that, but this is a unique project and a sizable project. Typically, we've always put the money in 1 year. We had some, difficulty, and we knew that we were kind of looking at it toward the Butterfly House, acquiring the Butterfly House. So we kind of spaced it over 3 years just to blend it into our capital program, but made it a priority because if we don't front load it, what happens is that the zoo has to go out and borrow money and pay interest on that money until our money goes in. And so by just shifting things around a little bit, we can benefit them without really hurting ourselves too much.
Thank you. Nice sport coat.
Other questions or comments? Councilor Oppenheimer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of different questions. One regarding everyone's favorite topic, outdoor pools. With the current plan, what are the pool hours that are planned for? Like what days is it going? Outdoor pools, when would it open, when would it close?
To this current?
To the current,
this existing
to the
season?
proposed budget for 2027.
So the proposed budget would bring it to the second weekend of August.
Okay. And is that for all the pools to be open, or what is the plan?
Yeah, that would be all the pools, bringing them to the second weekend of August and then closing collectively.
Okay. Can I ask a second question?
Please go ahead.
Totally separate topic. Regarding the fields that, I'm looking forward, let me start again. Regarding the fields at Yankton Trail, there's obviously a lot of grass fields there. Looking forward in the budget, we're being asked about potentially putting turf on the Canaries field, and one of the justifications for it is that it'll save on grass costs and irrigation costs. Have we looked at potentially doing that at Yankton Trail or any of the other city-owned sports facilities?
I'm not familiar with the Yankton Trail conversation regarding turf. I'll bring that back to our team if I could follow up with you.
The Canaries Stadium is talking about putting turf in the stadium, replacing the grass. And one of the justifications for it is over 10 years, the cost of turf is lower than the cost of continually irrigating and replacing grass. And I'm wondering if considering we have 20-some fields at Yankton Trail, if we've ever looked at that as potentially a long-term.
I'd like the chance to get back to you on that to give the history its credit. I know our park operations crew has explored a number of avenues. I think some of the more recent conversations around adding turf to help out with those ongoing operational expenses is in some of the mouth goals of actually neighborhood parks, where we see that heavy practice play. and demand on a space, and the goals get chewed up through the school season and whatnot. So, but to make sure I'm reflecting the history and what conversations we've had around that, I'd love to get back to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Councilor Akue?
I have a comment first, Brett. Just glad to see that we remain committed to supporting the zoo. Visited with Becky DeWitts, and just her team have been working extremely hard to raise money and transform the zoo into an all-season activity, an all-season place. So thank you for that. The question I have is in regards to the soccer pitches at Terrace Park. I've had several people from the soccer community reach out to me. How much would it cost to turf that? Because it's pretty difficult playing soccer on concrete.
You're referring to the mini pitches at Terrace Park and Nooser Salem Park?
Correct, yep.
So they're designed in that way. They're designed for the game of futsal. We do also lean into some adaptive soccer programs, which allows kids it provides them mobility in the devices that they're using to aid them. So it's not designed to turf those mini pitches at all. They're designed in that manner. I'm gonna make sure I'm referring to the same asset. The mini pitch, it's enclosed by fencing. It's got smaller goals.
Yeah.
It's on a concrete playing surface.
Yeah.
Yep, it's designed that way to support the game of futsal.
Okay.
All right, Councilor Basie, come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brett, I want to ask a few more questions about the zoo funding, and just kind of going back to that question I asked of, it's sales tax fund and entertainment tax. Is this the first time that we're looking at entertainment tax dollars for the zoo? It's historically come from the sales tax fund, right?
I would defer to Director Pritchett.
Thank you for your question. It's a good question. So historically, there was a period of time when some of the operating support did come from the entertainment tax. It was a council-initiated action at the time. The council wanted to increase funding and operating support for the zoo. This was during the Huther administration. It wasn't necessarily supported on the administrative side, so the council moved forward with adding the word zoo to the actual ordinance that funds the entertainment tax, or the entertainment tax itself. So if you go to the city's ordinance, it actually adds the word zoo as an eligible recipient of it. And for a period of probably, I don't know how many years we were funding the zoo. It was maybe, let's say, 10%, 5% of the actual total amount. A bulk of it was still coming out of Parks and Recreation's budget. And then eventually, when times were pretty good here, early on in my tenure here, probably around 2019, 2020, we actually moved it back out and kept it in the general fund because it was just simpler to not be splitting it between the two and harder to explain. We haven't funded any capital projects out of the entertainment tax previously, however.
If I can ask another finance-related question, are there different criteria or different restrictions on money that comes from one bucket versus the other of the kinds of things that, this sales tax fund, like as moving the CIP dollars up in a lump sum versus dollars coming from an entertainment tax fund? Are there any restrictions on one versus the other?
The restrictions are based, so general fund has to be used for operating type of support or repairs and maintenance when it comes to zoo support. Previously, all the capital stuff, capital support has come out of the sales and use tax fund, and it can only support capital. Entertainment tax does both. It can do capital or it can do operating support. So it's a little bit more flexible in that regard, and it serves that capacity, say with Washington Pavilion, providing both operating and capital support for them. In this case, for the zoo, it's capital support. So there's no real restriction on the use of the entertainment tax dollars for capital. We just have to note that it's for a capital project and have a capital program that goes along with it. If you look at state statute, when they talk about the entertainment tax, it's broadly based, but it tends to be, the qualification is that it's used for the promotion of the community, and that is broadly defined and left to the local governing body to determine, except there is an AG's opinion that you can't use it outside of your municipality. So at one time, a community wanted to fund a museum outside or something outside their community, and that was noted to be not okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Thomason?
I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but I'm just going to ask one question. Just one question. Is there a reason why we couldn't do like what we did for the airport and give a $4 million essentially grant or an interest-free loan that they could pay back whenever they wanted in order to help with their funding? Or is that something that's not possible with the zoo?
So we looked at that for the airport and frankly looked at their financials. And while they're in a intensive capital growth plan right now, and so a little bit squeezed in terms of revenues and supporting that, and we felt that, but over the long term, they have strong financial condition where they, can make more revenues than their expenses and be able to repay debt, essentially. And so it made sense to provide a flexible 0% loan to the airport, our contribution being our flexibility in repayment and not charging an interest rate. When you compare that to the zoo, much different situation. We subsidize their operations, so they're not a profit-making enterprise already and really not able to, on an ongoing basis, support debt from that perspective.
Other follow-up questions? Brett, I've got a couple. Let's stay on the subject of the zoo. First, I'll harken back to the great counselor Greg Neitzert. One of his, I think it was one of his final months here. He had gone on a tour of the zoo with then Counselor Cole. And I remember the day Counselor Neitzert came back from that, and I got one of those famous 3-page emails the next night at about 4 a.m. And Counselor Neitzert harpened and consistently, I think one of his closing messages was to us, do not take your eye off the ball when it comes to deferred maintenance at the zoo. And I believe we had this conversation actually with some financial leaders as well, talking about one of the key things the city has to consider in the years ahead is allocating our sales and use tax more for deferred maintenance, because donor support is extremely hard to raise for replacing a crumbling brick wall or replacing this fence. When I look at the current proposed plan, I understand the vision, support the overarching vision. When I look at the current plan, it puts us in another position of not allocating any money for deferred maintenance support over the next 5 years. I guess my question is that realistic? That we can make this one-time large investment right now of $7 million, but then not plan for the next 4 years of any money towards deferred maintenance?
It's a wonderful question. I would like to invite Becky DeWitt's with the zoo to come up and speak to some of the ongoing projects at the zoo and how we partnered in that manner, if I may.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Becky DeWitt, CEO of the Great Plains Zoo and the Butterfly House and Aquarium. It's a good question. We have been working on the maintenance aspect of the campus. There's plenty of areas that have been very tired for quite some time. Just for everybody's historical context, I started in this role in October of 2020. So we're almost at 6 years of me in this role. In the past 6 years, we've done about north of $16 million worth of both capital improvement type investments as well as maintenance type investments. Nobody wants to fund, from a donor's perspective, $1 million worth of sewer. And so that is where it is such a dance to be able to tackle what we need to produce the revenue, to increase our overall financial sustainability so that we can continue to invest in the zoo. And I'll just give you an idea of roofs. There's 40 buildings and structures on that 45-acre campus. The operational support that we receive every year helps to offset the cost of labor, utilities, food, and I use it for maintenance. So that's exactly where I've been investing. There was a long-term deferred maintenance that we are dealing with to this day, and it is more expensive to deal with deferred maintenance over a long period of time versus if we can address it early. And frankly, maintenance is an area that we have to address it. So that is where my board, my staff, and all of I hate to say the word profit, but the increased investment into the campus is going in to directly handle the offset of those deferred maintenance projects. Roofs alone, I have $120,000 worth of roofs to do this year. It's not something anybody wants to spend money on, but it's critically important, especially as it relates to the animals and the people that may reside in said building. Did that answer your question fully?
I appreciate the perspective.
You bet. Thank you.
Brett, one final question I would have. It's going to turn to a completely different subject matter. Jacobson Plaza.
Yeah.
I think everybody recognizes the economic development value of Jacobson Plaza downtown. I guess I would ask the question, if we said as a city council body, we said, hey, from a policy perspective, we want Jacobson Plaza to make $1 every year. So for example, we've made the policy decision saying we want the subsidy rate of the indoor recreation centers, et cetera, to be at a certain percentage. If we said we want Jacobson Plaza to make $1 a year rather than subsidize it at $600,000 a year, what would we have to do policy-wise, structure-wise, or program-wise of changes at Jacobson Plaza to make $1 a year?
If I'm understanding your question right, essentially a break-even situation?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we're learning a lot at Jacobson Plaza. We'd be far from that break-even scenario today. With that said, the park's been wildly successful, right? Over 500,000 visits a year. It's packed if you've ever seen it on a weekend or an afternoon. We're weighing those options with our partners in Washington Pavilion who operate the lodge for us. The seasonality of it can be difficult. We're exploring changes. We're exploring changes to managing their variable expenses and labor costs, cost of goods for sale. Studying our patterns. I mean, it's hardly had one full year of activation yet. So studying our utilization patterns from both a lodge perspective and a skate rental perspective and making the appropriate adjustments to reduce expenses where it makes sense. The answer to that, like many things, is multiple factors. We've made efforts of recent to further activate the space. If none of you have made it down to Jazz at Jacobson Plaza on a Tuesday night of recent, I guess Tuesday nights are difficult for this crowd. Never mind. It's been a wonderful turnout.
We'll be there tonight.
I know. Well, I hope you are. We've got it tonight. We sure do. So we're trying different ways to activate the space. One thing I love about that question and fascinates me about Jacobson Plaza, again, wildly successful, over 500,000 visits a year. I'll speak just my own vantage point on it. I've been shocked at the neighborhood turnout. You know, Falls Park is lovely. It's our namesake, and we're proud of it in so many ways. But if you study Falls Park attendance, it's a lot of tourism, and a lot of the visitors are from greater than 50 miles away, and they're attending that one time, and then they'll be back next year, maybe. Jacobson Plaza is not that. Jacobson Plaza is 80% Sioux Falls residents, and even more so, it's drawing from the local neighborhood, if you would, off North Main Avenue. I love seeing that. It's a lower socioeconomic neighborhood, so it brings me a smile to see that splash pad activated, that playground activated for those downtown neighborhoods. Though that type of audience, though, isn't going to draw food and bev sales. So we're learning that. We're studying not only the utilization patterns, but the composition of that audience. And we need to make adjustments accordingly. But I don't want to mislead you at all. It's far from that break-even point.
Thank you for your perspective and consideration. Councilor Basie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to just take a hard left turn thinking about ROI and costs. Something that's been in the news a lot is the robot mowers. And I know we were having conversations in an earlier presentation about ways to leverage technology and AI and, you know, trying to impact costs and expenses. Any insight for us on maybe ways that those have saved you? They're clearly novelty.
Yeah, the robots, they've caught a spotlight of recent. I really appreciate the question. It gives me a chance to tip my cap to our team, our Parks and Recreation leadership team. Across the board, from recreation to ops, they've been pushing the envelope in innovation, and the robots are simply one of those answers to it. I assume you're talking about the robot mowers. We started with 3. I'll have to have Park Operations Manager Josh Johnson keep me honest here. We started with 3, uncertain of what that experience would bring us. It was wildly successful in 2025. In 2026, we expanded to 8, and then we dipped our toe in the water of how a robot mower would work on a median. We've put them in places that are more inefficient from an operations perspective. When you imagine what it takes to take care of a median, you're driving a trailer, you're loading that trailer up, you're driving the trailer, you're unloading the trailer. Safety comes into question. There's a lot of things where you can find efficiencies through that robot. The purchase cost for the robots ranges from $2,600 to $12,000, varying coverages, about a third of an acre up to 4 acres. Life cycle is 6 years, and we're seeing a return on investment in 1 to 3 seasons on those. So it's been an incredible investment of ours to find smarter ways to work, scale with the city's growth. But before we had robot mowers, we had robot painters. supporting our athletic facilities, and on our painters, we're seeing an ROI of 1 season. But the innovation efforts go beyond robots. Again, the team's pushing the envelope in a number of ways, from making more informed decisions on purchasing, studying fertilizers, seed trends, rain patterns. They've really done a phenomenal job. Even simple solutions like adding seed spit cups at Sherman Park can realize thousands and reduce variable labor expenses. So robots catch a lot of the spotlight, and we're happy for that. And they've, maybe most importantly, allow you that chance to go do some other task in the park system while it takes care of the mowing. So there are significant indirect gains beyond the immediate ROI calculation. Thank you for that.
Councilors, any final questions? Councilor Pinkinen.
Yeah, mine's just a clarification on that second week in August for next year on the outdoor pools being open. Is it full weekends? Because we have the 1st is a Sunday of the 1st of August.
It'd be full weekends. If you put me on the spot, I'll pull up a calendar.
This whole week perhaps changed, so I was curious if it's
14th, 15th.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you, Councilor. Any final questions for the Parks Department? All right, thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
All right, turn our attention now and invite Director Sean Pritchett forward to give us a presentation on the Public Parking Fund.
One potential request here, we have a hard stop at 5:30, is that correct?
Yeah, we can take her to 5:40.
Okay.
We can take her to that.
Would you mind if we started with entertainment taxes? We have several guests with us for that, and then come back for public parking?
Absolutely.
In the event we don't get to it, we could bring it to the 4 p.m. next week?
Yep.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Good afternoon, Sean Pritchett, Director of Finance. We're going to start here with entertainment facilities. I want to introduce, for many of you already know, Scott Rust, a procurement officer with the Department of Finance as well. We both collectively work directly with all of our entertainment facilities for both project planning and then just advisement and operations. So we're going to go ahead and get started and walk through the various different entertainment facilities that we have and talk about their budgets. But the key focus areas here as we walk into our entertainment facilities is enriching our community through access to entertainment opportunities. We want to do a good job of maintaining and improving our existing facilities and invest in the future of entertainment and convention business here in Sioux Falls, bringing visitors to our community and the economic impact that that has for our region. Just what can show you here a little bit of where our entertainment tax has been here over the last 10 years. Right now we are budgeting at $12.8 million for 2027. That is an estimate of growing our current base by 4.5% in 2026 and another 4.5% in 2027. Right now, we are on a 12-month rolling basis at 5.9%. So feeling very comfortable with that number for 2026. And our 10-year average for the entertainment tax is 5.2%. So we are, again, budgeting and projecting at a pretty conservative level. This kind of shows you your revenue drivers. So of our revenue, $13 million approximately is budgeted to come in from that tax on beverages, on liquor, on prepared foods, and on lodging, which is the primary ones, and then entertainment tickets. And then the other $3 million or so in revenue comes directly from our event center complex, which is profitable. And so that money, anything that we generate, even though it stays in their account, is attributed to the entertainment tax and becomes part of this entertainment tax budget. And then about $300,000 in interest overall. The Denny Sanford Premier Center, as I noted, does make enough profit to cover essentially all the subsidies from an operational perspective for all of the entertainment venues, including the Washington Pavilion, the Orpheum Arena, the Convention Center, and the baseball stadium. This kind of lays out the total support that we have in the 2027 budget, which is about $21 million, with the largest going to the event complex, and that's primarily on the capital side, with the Washington Pavilion at about $4.7 million overall as well, the stadium at $2.2, and the Orpheum Theater at $1. And again, that includes both operating support, if any, which would be for the Washington Pavilion and Orpheum, as well as the capital side. The majority of our entertainment venues budget is taking care of our assets, about 71% of it, of the $12 million, and that doesn't include the one-time $4 million commitment to the zoo. So we're kind of setting that aside because it kind of dwarfs our percentages a little bit because that is a one-time proposed contribution. The operating support increase is primarily related to Washington Pavilion and Orpheum. We've held them constant for, I don't know, Darren could tell you when he arrives, but it's been well over a decade, certainly since the time I've been here. But we're going to talk a little bit about maintenance and some of the things that we've been thinking about with that. So when I get into the Washington Pavilion budget here later on in the presentation, it's kind of a follow-up a little bit to what you brought up, Councilor McCorris, and taking care of our assets. So we'll address that as part of that. We did, for the first time this year, you'll see there are wages and benefits under the entertainment tax. So in the past, we have not been assigning any city employees wages and benefits, even though we're expending and exhaust a lot of time monitoring and working with these assets, especially our procurement officer, who probably spends about 50% of his time right now working, project managing, and working alongside these various facilities. This is not dissimilar to what we've done with transit, what we do with housing. We allocate the time that we believe that, or that we estimate that our employees are spending related to those. And that really shouldn't be a general fund expense, right? So we're just trying to clean this up and make it more consistent with our other funds when you're talking about specific work that they're doing. The other thing I would note, and I think I mentioned this to most of you, is that all of our entertainment tax management agreements are going to expire at the end of 2027. So we are already preparing for issuing a request for proposal for the Event Center campus, which will hopefully be coming out at the end of this year or at the latest early next year. And then we will begin discussions as well with the Washington Pavilion about continued management services for the Washington Pavilion. So the Event Center is a place, obviously, for concerts, sporting events, and conventions. And we want to talk a little bit about, well, first, I want to introduce Mike Cruson, who many of you probably already know, but Mike is our general manager here for the Event Center complex. So that includes the stadium oversight, also includes the convention center, the arena, and certainly it includes the Premier Center. So as you can see, the breakdown for the Event Center complex and stadium all combined, 37% of the budget is for capital outlay for capital buildings, 28% is for taking care of the buildings and insurance. We do have some amount in for consulting services. I'll talk further about that. And then capital equipment at about 16%. The cyclic timing of capital and maintenance projects account for the majority of the changes that you will see here. Some to highlight that we will be planning here over the next several years. The Convention Center will be spending about $600,000 annually to refurbish air handler systems. There are 9 of them, so we'll do a few in each of those years. On the Event Center, we've scheduled carpet replacement, parking lot seal coating, spec seating, floor polishing, and facility furniture. So again, continuing to reinvest, making sure that those assets are maintained at top quality. And then for the stadium, some of their cyclic projects will include caulking and tuck pointing concrete for about $150,000, some painting for about $25,000, and some door replacements at $40,000. On the capital side, some of the projects that you will see, if you can flip to the next slide. On the capital side, some of the projects you will see here for the Event Center, working on video and audio upgrades, aisle and concourse lighting, and signage and wayfinding replacement. We're getting to a point where they need to be replaced. On the Convention Center, we're looking at an employee locker room expansion, a banquet, kitchen and convention center, equipment refurbishment. And the one that I really want to point out is boiler upgrade at the arena. Certainly we've had a lot of discussion about the arena. We are not investing in it because the intent had always been the recommendation that it eventually be torn down. We don't know that we will do a boiler upgrade there, but we want to be prepared if something comes up. So it's not intended to be there, but we are nursing it along, and that building is going to has to last for several more years until a plan is established about the future of the convention center, location, expansion at current site, etc. And so we hold graduations there. It's used as overflow space for trade shows, which is necessary for hosting those shows. We do have to make sure that that space continues to be available until a proper alternative is decided. So I would like to turn our attention to talking about the Sioux Falls Baseball Stadium, and I also want to introduce Brian Jambros, who is here, and if he could raise his hand. Brian is the GM for the Canaries and oversees the stadium, which they lease from us at the city. So he's available for questions with this presentation as well. So I want to talk a lot about the stadium because it certainly has elicited some good conversation from council members as well as others. So I want to have some more maybe focused discussion on this than we probably have in prior years. First, the proposed 2027 budget, including both capital maintenance and operations, recommends a budget of $2.2 million. This is an increase of $500,000 from 2026, and this is primarily driven by the capital investment side. I want to note that the operating contract line item is not actually money dispersed by the city. You can see operating contract and it says $200,000 there. The $200,000 is essentially the net operating position from operations and maintenance allocated to this facility by Legends Global as part of the event center complex, but it is netted actually off of the net income for the entire complex. And since the Premier Center is profitable, we don't actually outlay any cash related to this, but it is considered an expense for our budgeting purposes. Also, I will note that we continue to carry forward $200,000 in '27, similar to prior years, for potential consulting services about the future of the stadium. This funding is budgeted, but in this last, similar to the last few years, it remained unspent. And so it would be something that when we're ready to move forward with it, would be available, would not be expended without the approval of the council in the approval of any contracts that are associated with it. Focusing more specifically on the capital side, the major proposed investment would be to install turf in the outfield to match what the team is already invested for the turf in the infield. So the question really is, why now and why this? And what is the expected return on that investment? Before going into that, I want to zoom back a little bit to 8 years ago when I started working for the city and overseeing these event venues. At that time, we had team ownership for the Canaries that was not investing in either the team itself or in the facility. As a result, the city invested very little in the facility as well, only making safety improvements like netting and fixing mechanical systems. That changed significantly when the team was sold and the current ownership group took over. They had a vision for what the team could be, and they also wanted to see improvements to the facility and what that could be and mean for the community. They took the first step forward, first by installing a new video board in 2021, and following that up in 2022 by installing turf in the infield. Combined, this totaled a $1 million investment in a facility that they don't actually own, but they did to help support the community, the possibilities for the facility, as well as the team. In addition, this team has invested $100,000 from its foundation in the community, and staff, team, and mascots have attended more than 100 events outside of just baseball games. Over time, the city started getting more serious about making additional investments as well. We improved office space, installed new lockers, finally replaced the bad chairs that were remaining and way past their useful life, and most recently installing new field lighting. So what was the results of these investments? Users of the facility increased from about 60,000 in 2022 to just shy of 120,000 in 2025. They increased the diversity of use by the community. They hosted a Pride event with 15,000 people attending. They hosted a Taylor Swift dance party, which I did not attend, hosting two-day music festivals, bringing tens of thousands of people into our community that hadn't hosted a music festival of that scale and size in quite some time, and probably since Jazz Fest. This year, they were able to attract Banana Ball to locate a 3-game series here in Sioux Falls that was so popular that they had to use a ticket lottery and selling out all 3 games with nearly 15,000 people expected to attend, and that opportunity has the possibility of coming back in future years. They've hosted the state high school baseball tournament, they're host to the USF baseball team, and they've hosted the NSIC tournament in the last few years. Not to mention seeing the competitive team playing as the primary tenant of that facility. But there is opportunity to do more, which is why we are looking to make 2 key investments in 2027 that will improve the functionality of the stadium and the users and the fan experience. This is the only baseball stadium of this scale in the state. We have engaged consultants to study the bones of the facility a few years ago to understand, is it worth investing in, given it was built in the 1960s. But it is mostly concrete and mechanical systems. And as a result of that study, the bones were assessed to be in good shape. But what it misses is some functional and fan and user amenities expected of stadiums today. There are more uses for this facility, but we become limited by the fact that we have grass in the outfield. So let's talk about that for a bit. First, this venue works better than others in our community for major outdoor festivals and concerts. And that's a lesson I think the Washington Pavilion learned as part of their putting on the Lally Cooler. And then the Canaries have put on 2 festivals as well. It is self-contained. It has on-site parking, has structure for shielding from inclement weather, and overall can reduce the expense of a concert or event. And one thing that I've seen, I guess, in looking at the entertainment landscape over the last few years is this move toward more outside events and singers wanting to play outside. That's why you're seeing a lot of outside venues being constructed in cities. Most recently, you'll see that in Shakopee. One of the challenges, though, with having grass in the outfield is the amount of flooring that has to be put under the stage and the pit area for concerts. That alone is costing $50,000 to $60,000 for 2 days. And this would greatly reduce potentially if we had turf. In addition to adaptive reuse of the stadium, it's much easier with turf. The club has been approached about opening the stadium for soccer games for youth. To your question, Councilor Okwa, they are looking for having those opportunities, but right now with grass turf, they're not able to do that. But if they did have turf, in fact, Brian Jambros and I had this conversation this month, and it is not far from the pitches that you were just speaking of earlier, just down the street from there. Would love the opportunity to be inviting the community in to be utilizing that, but with the turf, it's too hard to manage. If they had artificial turf, they would be able to manage things like that and really enhance what they're giving back to the community. I also think this was taken after Lallycool. You can see the impact on the grass from that event and the $15,000 in watering bill that it took to bring it back to a playable condition. We've also had other inquiries in the stadium. The club has been contacted by D1 baseball teams that would like to host a game there. We could host a D1 tournament, perhaps the Summit League. But these opportunities occur early or late in the spring when grass turf is not reliable and may not yet be playable. So that opens up additional opportunities for us. So the question is, why now? And what is that rate of return? Because as a numbers person, I'd like to see that investment has a return for our city for the level of investment that we put in. One may say, may question, we haven't even established a vision for the event center campus yet. But that has been delayed, obviously, because it's related to Riverline, now it's related to Sanford District. That question is a good one. There are commonalities between all of these sites and opportunities as they relate to both sport, entertainment, and hospitality. And they should run in tandem, and that will be driven by the pace of the master planning for the Sanford District. So does it make sense to make a major investment now without a long-term vision or plan? As I said, a city of this size as Sioux Falls needs a well-sized baseball stadium. Should it be this one? Should it be refurbished? Should we build a new one? The reality is, even if the vision is to relocate a baseball stadium and build one elsewhere, the time frame necessary from now until that would even be occupied is 10 years. The life expectancy of the outside turf would be 10 years. So essentially, we get the benefit if we make the investment today. If we wait later, the cost will go up. And that's a factor. It's not an excuse. It's not a primary reason you should go into a project, but it is certainly a factor that we should keep in mind. So let's look at the specific numbers. A $950,000 investment into a 10-year useful life is essentially a depreciation rate of about $95,000. Right now, based on conversations with Canaries as well as what we have for this city, between the two of us, we are expending approximately $100,000 to maintain that grass turf. We also have a sprinkler system underneath it that's 30 years old and at the end of its useful life, and we currently estimate that replacement at about $75,000. So over 10 years, cost to maintain it as grass turf is about $1.075 million. The turf is less expensive option when you look at it from a return on investment, and that doesn't take into account spending $50,000 to $60,000 to cover the grass and concert events, or the opportunity cost for lost events in terms of sales tax, collected entertainment tax, and public facility fees. We probably don't think a lot about public facility fees, but for those that are not aware, we collect public facility fees, which are add-ons that go to they're collected by Legends Global, they're kept on the city's behalf within our accounts. They're charged on concerts, they're charged on entrance to the convention center for certain events, they're charged on tickets to the Canaries game, they're charged on concerts for the Canaries game. And to give you a little bit of a snapshot of what we've collected from the stadium and how that's changed over time, I looked back and we had collected $33,000 in 2023, and that has increased to $75,000 in 2025. So it shows you the opportunity we have when we're able to program the stadium more directly, and that comes directly to the city as well. There's also the heads and beds argument. What impact does that have? We looked at Placer AI, and it estimates 25% of the visitors to the facility are coming from 50 miles away. And I think it's driven in large part by some of those concert events that they're having, but some driven by the baseball games. But also think about, we're hosting a high school league tournament here. That's certainly almost all, could be all heads and beds. The economic impact for the stadium, on average, based on Placer AI data, has gone from $2 million per year in 2022 to an average of about $3.5 million in 24 and 25. So they have conservative estimates, they have aggressive estimates. So if you looked at it over the next 10-year period, no change to than the current activity, we'd be running at an economic benefit of $20 to $50 million as a result of the stadium. Overall, I think the reason we included this in the budget is because it makes sense from a timing perspective, even if it may at face value seem premature. This is based on the useful life of the improvement and the potential for economic impact and the direct costs on a return on investment. So we look at it not as a $950,000 investment in the baseball field, but rather an investment in the Sioux Falls sports infrastructure for tourism, our economy, and most importantly, the ability to attract events. You can see here the 5-year capital outlay for the events complex as well as the stadium. And as you can see, we don't have huge impact now or huge investments that we're looking at in the stadium. We do have $500,000 programmed in for 2029 if we get to that point, so it's a couple of years out, but I believe those are for the suite enhancements and rehabilitation. So it'll be a discussion point, but at that time, hopefully we'll be much further along in master planning and have a better concept of where Sanford District, Riverline, and our event center complex is going. I'm going to turn my attention to Washington Pavilion now, and I do want to introduce, of course, Darren Smith is here, who is the general manager or the director and president of the Washington Pavilion. I think we're all very aware of it. It's a very diverse institution there, but I think it's just important to point out the diversity of content and things that are happening at that facility. I know Darren gave a presentation a few weeks back and an update for the year, but I think a lot of times we either think of it as a kids' science museum or a place where you go see Broadway plays, but it's an art museum. It is also a place where kids learn. It is I wouldn't say a daycare facility, but it's a child care facility. And it's an art gallery, as I said, art galleries, but a planetarium. So there's really diversified interest and almost unique nationally in what it does. As far as the budget, you can see that we have a budget of $4.7 million for 2027, down slightly from $4.8 million, and that's really driven on the capital side overall. We haven't changed, as I mentioned, our operating support for the Washington Pavilion, and Darren could answer the question during my tenure, and I know it predates me before that as well. So we've held them constant over that entire period, and yet the pavilion has continued to be successful and generate additional revenues and be more self-supporting. So why did we include the $75,000? We talked about 100. It's split because they do both the pavilion and the Orpheum, and $75,000 and then $25,000 for the Orpheum. We're not planning to pay that essentially as operating support. We're holding it back as an option. We've been having ongoing conversations about maintenance of the facility. How do we ensure continuity of that and then quality? I will say to your question that you had, Councilor McCorris, with the zoo, one of the things that we're embarking on right now is how does our centralized facilities work more collaboratively with our various managed assets to ensure that our assets are being taken care of, as well as that regular maintenance is being done to prevent more, I would say, expensive repairs from happening. Whether that means checking the glycol in the chillers and making sure they're set there. Because as a city, we have more resources, a broader set of trades that we can bring to bear to provide some assistance to each of our managed entities. And the benefit to us is ensuring, one, reduced cost for us for repairs that may be incurred or replacements in capital program. But it's just a better way of managing our assets on behalf. So that is something that we're working on and embarking on right now. And what that looks like, we're working to frame out. That could be inspections that go through these facilities annually to make sure that we're checking off these are the things that we see and that we want to see taken care of in order to continue receiving operating support for the city if you receive them. And it also means, as we've done recently, sending our HVAC people out and checking all these chillers and HVAC units and seeing where they're at to make sure they're being taken care of and just trying to identify issues earlier. And so that's one of the bases that we're looking at for that small uptick there. As far as major capital program items for the Washington Pavilion, really the biggest one that we're looking at in 27 is the marquee replacement. That is the signage, ground signage with the digital display that is on the northwest corner of the property. Will be replaced with larger digital display that will be better for advertising things that are happening at the pavilion as well as shows that are going on. There's also a remodel to the Carver classroom, and then we'll be working on stage lighting, and then there's a truck replacement as well. On the Orpheum side, which is also managed by the Washington Pavilion, we have about a $1.0 million budget. That's down $173,000 from last year. And that's really driven again by the capital side, and that's really cyclical. For the Orpheum Theater, the 2027 capital program, the main items are the marquees. So these would actually be on the front of the building. We're looking at additional digital and signage that complements the building but allows them to advertise shows. And we've been working on that for several years. And then $120,000 for network and security equipment. And this just kind of shows your 5-year plan for through 2031, pretty consistently running between that $1.6 to $2.5 million in capital improvements planned for both facilities during that time period. So that is the entertainment tax presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but as I noted, we have the GMs for each of the facilities here for those questions also.
Thank you, Director. Councilors, just note, we've got 15 minutes remaining. And we will bring everybody back. So, I mean, we're going to get to every question. Just a matter if we get to the questions today or the next couple of weeks. So we'll cover them all. But for now, let's just go down, make them quick, succinct, 2 questions apiece, and we'll stop our questions at 5:30 specifically, and then we'll determine who to bring back next week. So start with you, Council. Start on this side down here, and then start working down those who have questions. Councilor Oppenheimer.
You can come back to me.
Yep, you're free to say pass.
Director, I'm looking at slide 99 and 100, revenue budget, major drivers, and then the very next one is venues and support. Total revenues for 2027 is at 16.2, but then the venues and support is at 20, so it's more than that. So I just, am I reading that right? Like,
Nope.
Unpack that a little for me.
Yeah, that's a good question. So like most of our funds that maybe are working on the capital side, and we'd see this with the centralized facilities funds, we allow it to build up balances over time, and then sometimes we spend more than what the balances are, so that when we have a major capital project. So in this case, if you remove the $4 million, the $4 million, you could simply look at it as the $4 million for the zoo is coming from our capital balance, and then we're pretty much balanced between capital. But we have a fund balance that we're able to draw down. Think of it like a reserve, but that's how we work through the forecast for it.
And I assume that that fund balance is referenced in our most recent financial update packet, or where are we going to go to see the total balance of the fund?
It should be, but also we'll get you that number as well. And you should have an updated monthly financial report for July by the end of this week, emailed to you.
Thank you.
Councilor Quay. Councilor Thomason?
2 quick questions. Number 1 is, why did we not turf the outfield when we turfed the infield? And then secondly, is there going to be any issues with having older turf in the outfield, or newer turf in the outfield and older turf in the infield?
So I'm not a turf expert, but I think the city at the time, as I kind of noted in my presentation, we weren't going to do any improvements to the stadium, right? And they were a new ownership group, so they took it upon themselves. The highest priority for them at that time was to get the infield done, and they paid for it themselves. At this point, looking back, most all of those improvements have been made by the city previously, so we're proposing the city to be making this improvement. As far as what will be the difference, I don't think there'll be much difference by the fact that you have 2 different times in which the turf was, except that the turf in the infield is going to be a few years older and have that depreciation on it already.
Councilor Oppenheimer, coming back to you.
Sorry, it took me a second. We talked about the people coming into town for the Canary Stadium and for the other parts. Could you talk, or could Becky talk about the zoo and how many people come from out of town, what attendance is like?
Thank you. So our attendance right now, I shared this with several of the counselors, happy to share this with all of you if you'd like to see it. But last year, just to give you an example, combined attendance with the Butterfly House and the Great Plains Zoo was over 320,000. It was 340,000 the year previous to that. And based on our zip code analysis, we were able to ascertain that about 50% of those are coming from a distance, so outside of our community, with 50% being those that would be community members. And so, significant draw.
Thank you.
You up? Anyone else?
Counselor Spellerberg? None? Counselor Pankinen, any questions?
Yes, I do have two on the baseball field, and they might be directed towards the Canaries that
Yeah,
that
please.
is in attendance.
I'll invite them forward. Go ahead with the question.
Hello, Brian Jamros, President of the Canaries.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for attending today.
Absolutely.
How many of your outfielders are looking forward to the turf in the months of June and July?
Oh, all of them would look forward to playing on a playing surface like that. Half the teams in our league play on turfed outfields, especially a lot of the newer facilities around the American Association. It's, in our climate and our geographical location, it just makes sense to have a turfed outfield. Obviously, there's not a lot of crossover between outfielders and coming into the infield. At least we try not to do that too often. It never ends well, but ultimately, it would be a great enhancement for all of our players.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Any other follow-up questions? Counselor Basie?
This might be for the Canaries folks too, but Sean, you might have some insight. You referenced what I'm going to use the phrasing of revenue loss for some of these other events, whether it be games or other concerts. I'm kind of channeling my inner like Terry and experience Sioux Falls and seeing it. I mean, can you quantify that? Can you paint us a picture of, hey, because that turf surface doesn't exist, we estimate we're losing X in revenue or economic impact every year from events that can't be hosted there?
I don't know that I could tell you directly off the top of my head because, lost events is a very hard thing to quantify. But I think about even the banana ball coming, you got 15,000 people. I think you use Placer AI data, which I think would probably be pretty conservative for that type of event. So 25% of that is, you're looking 4,000, multiply that by about 175, which I would say is probably a little on the aggressive side, and you get closer to what that event, if lost, would be. Now, we're able to entertain it without having turf yet, but would they continue to come back if they don't have something of that nature? And I think just makes us more attractive to those events overall.
Any other Counselor Oppenheimer?
I have one regarding the convention center. I saw there was 750,000, I believe, in there for improving staff locker rooms. Could someone
speak to that, Scott?
Give us some information on that?
Scott Rust, the procurement officer in finance. The staff locker room is really not much of a locker room. It's about the size of a closet right now, a rather large closet, but we're looking to double the size of that. It's been in the plan for a while. It's been talked about. It's been kicked out, and it just finally we found a spot in the plan that we could actually do it. We want to invest back in the staff there. They have no place to put their belongings. They have no place to park themselves for a break or anything in the facility at all. So when you start to look at when we have a large concert, we have over 100 people there in a given evening. And if we have another event in the convention center, it's even more than that. So we need places for the staff to go. And it's a way to invest back into the staff because right now they currently have no place to sit down, take a break in the facility. I think there's like 2 tables in there currently, and they seat 6 people, so it's pretty small to give you kind of some perspective.
I appreciate an investment in staff. Thank you.
You bet.
And final, Councilor Quay, please. Bring your mic forward there, please. Like a snow cone, just get right after it.
Hey, Director Pritchett, you mentioned the demolition of the arena. I've heard talks about a convention center going downtown. I've heard in the past that the Canaries want to move downtown. Are we de-investing from that campus that we spent millions in the past? Because that's what it seems like.
Thanks for that question. I think it's a good question, right? And I think it's one that we have to consider when we look at master planning the Sanford district, as well as the River Line and the Event Center campus. The decision was made to build an event center there, and it was $118, $120 million investment into that facility, and it exists. And it has a long stretch of useful life yet that is there. And people will say it should have been downtown. And back in the 90s, they should have put the convention center downtown. If only we had the clairvoyant to know that we were going to be as, walkable and pedestrian friendly downtown, or have the retail flourish that we have today. That just wasn't there at the time. But there is opportunities for multiple convention centers to exist, and we saw that in Fort Wayne, where they had two different convention centers. One that really focused on trade shows, that is serving the local community, your home show, your farm show, your dairy expos, things like that. And then a true convention center where you're attracting people from outside of the community to hold their conferences and events in your city. We do more trade shows and those type of things than we are doing true conferences. We do banquets, things like that, but our conferences are more rare because we just don't appeal in that way. So when you speak about the arena, if we're going to continue to host trade shows out at the event center complex, we are going to have to replace probably that square footage from the arena, but with more effective and efficient square space. Right now it's highly ineffective and highly inefficient, and it's just, we would probably add more ballroom space that can duplicate into trade show space as well. So it's definitely a consideration, and it goes back to the point that we need to be doing the event center complex at the exact same time that we're doing the Sanford District and River Line, among others.
Any final follow-up questions? Director, I just got a couple items, I think, more comments / requests over the next week. I think I'd follow up on Councilor Baisey's question regarding specifics, and I would just ask on the economic benefit on slide 110, you've got a $20 million to $50 million economic benefit over 10 years. If you could just break down for us just another level of specificity. Let's just assume a $25 million economic benefit over the next 10 years. Help just give us maybe 5 to 10 bullet points of what that means and how we arrived at that number. Second request I would have is, I'm going to be just straightforward, so there's no surprises when it comes to the budget in September. I agree with the zoo overall master plan and vision and the ongoing impact to the city of Sioux Falls. I'm struggling with the financing and financial plan of how the city's supporting it. I would appreciate an opportunity just to see if we had an up or down vote from the entertainment tax specifically of saying, let's do a one-time funding to help them cross the finish line from the entertainment tax. Let's take the $3 million and spread that over 5 years to take care of ongoing maintenance, deferred, pieces like that, just to kind of see what that impact would be and it would be overall. I just want to, I'm trying to be as transparent as possible so there's no surprises in September of what I would request our push forward. So if we could just have a little projection on the impact of the entertainment tax fund, I would appreciate that.
The one thing, and just two comments, thank you, and we'll work on those questions. So the numbers and the economic data that you see there, it's going to be difficult to break it down because it's just Placer AI data, right? So they base it based on the generation of attendees and economic activities, and they use an amount, but I can give you a little bit more information on how they calculate that, and then I can work with Experience Sioux Falls to talk about like a specific event and what the economic impact. In fact, I think we could pull like a Lally Cooler or Tacos and Tequila. I'm hoping that by the time we get to then, we'll be done with Banana Ball. I don't think we'll be able to pull the data that quickly though to get that economic impact, but I think there's some events we could pull and give you a snapshot of what that looks like. And then on the kind of the up or down vote on using the $3 million, the only thing I need to look into on that is a lot of repair and maintenance isn't capitalized necessarily, and it should be borne by a general fund instead. But
all right, well, I appreciate some thoughts on that and perspective. Final comment I'd make is just, if we can get that turf down, because I know Councilor Thomason is interested in Nutty's North returning in that area. So whatever we can do to get that built back up. So as we close out tonight, councilors, before we head into public input, what I would ask of you is next Tuesday, we've got a joint meeting at 5 o'clock with Minnehaha County. And so we've got 40 minutes before that. So I would say our first 10 minutes are going to be spent on the parking fund. We'll give Sean 10 minutes to present on the parking fund, allow for some questions there. Is there any specific directors or issues you want us to invite back for the final moments before we have our joint meeting next week? Councilors, just open for any requests of specific directors or specific departments you want to bring back along with the parking department. Councilor Siggety.
I would just ask, so you're for sure, Sean is coming back, Director Pritchett's coming back.
Sean, director will be here for sure.
Can we possibly go through, ask entertainment tax questions during that time as well, just to follow up?
Absolutely.
I'd like to go back and listen to his presentation and just collect my thoughts, so thanks.
Any other requests? I'd say if we got Director Pritchett, it'd be safe to assume if we come up with requests between now and Friday at noon, let's say, that'll give time for your directors to adjust their schedule to be here on Tuesday afternoon. So if there's special requests, please reach out to Director Pritchett before Friday at noon to add into that next Tuesday, and we'll go from there. At this time, we'll move into the public input portion of our meeting. If there's any members of the public that wish to address the council, you've got 5 minutes to speak on any of the agenda items we discussed today. Any members of the public wish to address the council? Going once, twice? All right, this meeting is adjourned.